You are now watching the Guru Perspective every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Welcome to a new episode of the Guru's Perspective, and today I want to talk about some good things that happened in college football. I picked a select few games, didn't pick all of them. A lot of the games was blowouts, and it wasn't really that good to me as far as some of the competition. But we did have some really good competition this weekend, and I would like to highlight those games, and I would like to talk about those for sure. I want to start off surprisingly with the Friday night games. I definitely wasn't expecting us to have some good games and a doubleheader at that on Friday. Not only did we have a good doubleheader, we had two top 25 teams playing in the doubleheader against two unranked teams, and that's the reason why I want to talk about it. Both games ended up being upsets. Two of the ranked teams lost to the unranked teams. I want to start off with a really good contest that happened with Florida State versus Virginia. I didn't know how good Virginia was at first until I actually saw them play because Virginia has a really solid team. They were 3-1 and they lost because they botched the play at the end of the game. They could have went on and won that game and been 4-0. But at the time they ended up losing. So that's why I don't believe they were ranked at the time. They looked at it too like the competition wasn't as heavy as a lot of the other teams who played. But Florida State came in riding high. First game of the season, beating Alabama by 2 touchdowns, beat Alabama down at that too as well. But any given day now. I'm starting to look at it like any given Friday, Saturday, Thursday, whenever they play, you never know what's going to happen. That's what made the kickoff of the college week, the football week, so exciting. Florida State went down in double overtime to Virginia. The problem was with this game, it just seemed like they came out and they came out stiff. Virginia went down, marched down the field, kicked the well, no, they made a touchdown. After they scored their touchdown, it was a fumble that they actually didn't call and give to Virginia, what it supposed to went to Virginia. But since they didn't do so, Virginia made their own fate. There was another fumble recovery in the game where once they got it this time, it was for sure on record. And all they did was just go back down and score another touchdown. When it was 14-0, I say if Florida State is in trouble, I still feel like they can win this game with some momentum, but they never picked up that momentum. I believe that punch in the face that they got earlier in the game was what they needed. And not only that, they punched them in the mouth and, basically, created their dominance. And they basically said, hey, we know who you are, but we're here too, and we're here for a dogfight. I just don't think really Florida State recovered from that. It was a really good game, though. Because Florida State did come back to the game and they forced the double overtime as well. So that's where I give them credit for being competitors and fighting and persevering through everything. But unfortunately, they came up with the loss. That was a shocker because they were number 8 at the time, and then they lost to an unranked Virginia team. Tommy Castillo played pretty good, 254 yards, 18 to 32. He had a touchdown, but then the 2 interceptions cost them. But on the other end, the quarterback as well, Chandler Morris, did just enough. He had 229 yards, 26 of 35. He had 2 touchdowns, but he had 3 picks on the day too. So nobody really played really clean. It was just a back and forth contest. The defenses played well. I just feel like Virginia did enough to win and stun Florida State. Florida State feel like they were up on cloud nine. They Tommy Castillo was saying that they were feeling themselves because they were undefeated and they needed this. And yeah, right now the good thing is you can lose a game and then just win out and still end up being in a championship. You possibly can lose 2 games now. Depends on how far along you lost those games and who you lost them to is something that actually can help you as well. Florida State having to play another stiff competition coming up this weekend too, which I'll be giving my predictions from the University of Miami. That's going to be a really good contest as well. I'm looking forward to it. That final score was 46 to 38. And I want to move on and I want to talk about the other contest that happened that night. That was really pretty intriguing to me as well. That was TCU, number 24 TCU versus Arizona State. This is a team my buddy Dion know very well. Dion Greenlee is a good friend of mine. He kept talking about what was going on in Arizona State and how good the organization was. He went there to that school, and we seen a lot of talent come from there, like Brandon Ayuk, you know and Harry at the time. He did good in college, but he didn't do good in the pros. But then you see Cam Scatterbo. It's a lot of good talent that's coming from that school. So even Jaden Daniels, don't forget you guys, before he transferred and he went over to LSU, that was the school he was at, with good old Herm Edwards. So yeah, it's a lot of good things that I've been seeing from the school as of late. This definitely helps them as well. Josh Hoover didn't play good at all that game. He played okay, but it was mediocre at best. I thought that he could have played better. He had 242 yards through the air, 20 of 32, but he had two picks on the day, and those two picks was costly. With Sam Levitt, he definitely played much better than what he did before as of recent. He had 291 yards, 27 of 39 passing, and he had two scores on the game. That score was surprising to me because I felt like, okay, TCU might have this game in the bag, but Arizona State showed otherwise. They have some really good guys on that team, and they have one of the better, collegiate wide receivers too. You guys look out for Jordan Tyson. They're saying he's going to possibly be a top 5 wide receiver prospect in the NFL coming up in 2026. So yeah, with Sam Levitt and Jordan Tyson, I'm definitely looking and seeing what's going to happen with this team, and I'm going to definitely look and see the rankings, the top 25 to see what's going on with that team now. But that's what I'm talking about. I love that going into the week. That 27-24 victory on that Friday, right after a Florida State upset. That's what I like to see in college football. It was 2 back-to-back upsets, and there was some pretty good games right after as well. I want to start off with the Oregon and Penn State game. We've always felt this way, and it's no disrespect to Penn State, but we always felt like Penn State just never had that victory that solidified them as one of the best. And the crazy part was this happened at the beginning of the season. We're only like 4 or 5 games in, and we just didn't see enough from them. Yeah, they went to 2 overtimes, but still, I just didn't feel like it was enough. Drew Aller been in this situation before. I thought maybe he might go off to the NFL. He decided to stay. And it definitely didn't serve a purpose because they looked like they were a lights out type of team. And of course, they lost. Yeah, I mean, it's only one loss right now, and you still can, run the table, even get another loss, depending on who you're playing. And definitely, they played number 6 Oregon. And by them being number 3, this is an opportunity for them, to make that up. But Drew Aller only had 137 yards, 14 of 25. He had 2 touchdowns, and he had a costly pick. But you thought that he would have did better than what he did. And Dante Moore looked phenomenal, ever since he got the opportunity to be in the driver's seat as the Oregon Ducks quarterback. He basically rise to the occasion. 248 through the air, 29 of 39, and 3 touchdowns. Like I said, that final score ended up being 30-24. Yes, it was double overtime, but it was in Penn State too, So, to lose a crucial game like that at home when you had the whiteout and you had everything going for you, and just to fall short, I didn't really take that well. And they shouldn't take that lightly as well, because it seems like that's the question they're going to constantly ask Penn State coach. You seem like you never get over that opportunity to be the best, or you can't beat the best when it comes to you playing the heavier and the more stiff competition. I want to move on, and I want to talk about number 4 LSU versus Ole Miss. This game was a shocker to me because I thought that it had been better played by LSU. LSU have a lot of problem on third down. Their defense is not as good as it used to be in the past. And yeah, it was only one loss right now, but Brian Kelly is on a hot seat. And that's why I think when people ask him certain questions that he don't agree with, that's why he kind of snap and goes off, because he knows right now that his time is ticking when it comes to being LSU head coach. I understand that, Garrett Nussmeier is hurt, but at the same time, you play, and if you playing, you trying to win. He didn't look so good in this game, but then they don't really have the old line to really protect him and help him as well if he was a little banged up, like everybody was saying. And what I'm looking at too is his performance. He had 197 yards, 21 of 34. He had a touchdown and an interception in that game. And then you look at Trinidad Chambers, 314 yards, 23 of 39, a touchdown, and he had a pick on the game as well. But when it came down to it, I just felt like his weapons played a little better, because when you look at it too, Kewan Lacey, he had 23 carries, 87 yards, and a touchdown, and his receiver as well, Caden Lee, had 70 yards, 4 receptions, and a score. It wasn't really much that he got from his team. He didn't get much from his running back as well. I'm talking about Garrett Nussmeier. Only thing he got from Harlem Berry was 22 yards on 7 carries and a score, and nobody else, it seems like they really stepped up besides, Nussmeier getting a touchdown in the game. But it was just a stagnant game for them. I really felt bad because Brian Kelly, he kind of showed them out. You can't really do that, when it comes to players. Yeah, you can talk to them, but he was slamming his, headpiece and, kind of getting on Nussmeier the whole game. And I feel like, come on now, even if the commentators and the analysts are saying, yeah, he's really getting off into Garrett Nussmeier, you can clearly see it. The whole world seen it. So I think that he's doing that right now because he's upset and his job is definitely on the line. But at the end of the day, Ole Miss won that game. It was 24-19. It wasn't really a bad game, but I just felt like it wasn't a good game for LSU because they barely won the week before, and that's when they asked the questions about them having problems on third downs, and it happened again this week, and they wasn't protecting Garrett Nussmeier, and it's a whole lot of stuff brewing over there in LSU. And the crazy thing is, I want to talk about this game too, when it looked like the world was falling. I'm gonna even admit too, I think me and Ebuck, well, I know me and my co-host Ebuck for the Guru Sports Session actually went with Georgia at home. We just didn't see a lot from Alabama. But what I've seen was Ty Simpson looked pretty sharp that game. He did some pretty good escapes. He threw the ball right on money. He is a better quarterback than I gave, credit for. I think after that first game and they slipped up and lost during the year, that people looked at them and said, Alabama not as good as a team as we thought they'd be. But Kevin DeBoer showed us different. He had a lot of trick plays. I thought that was a cool play he did to one of the linemen who almost went in and scored. But yeah, it was a pretty good contest. Crazy part about it is you guys let Carson Beck walk, but what I'm looking at is what did your quarterback really do in that game? Gunnar Stockton didn't really do much. I wasn't impressed. I'm gonna be honest with you. The person who they should be giving credit for even keeping them in the game was Chauncey Bowens. He looked like he was getting damn near 10 yards per carry, and he was, putting his dominance out there. The crazy thing was, I didn't think it was really a bad contest with Jam Miller as well, but he only had 46 yards versus, the 119 from Bowens, Chauncey Bowens. Okay. What I looked at too was like Gunnar Stockton, he had 130 yards, 13 of 20, and a touchdown. But Ty Simpson had 276 yards, 24 of 38, and he had 2 scores as well. I just feel like they just didn't budge. They didn't look like they were phased by the big competition of going there. Usually, when it comes to Alabama, I feel like, especially with this young team and guys, and I'm not really too familiar with, when they go on the road and when they play competition, they just don't seem like they rise to the occasion. Not this time. They went there, they punched Georgia in the mouth. And when they did this, they ended up winning the game. And it was a tell of two tapes when I seen this game as well. Because when you seen this game, what happened was at the beginning, they were going back and forth. Alabama had a huge lead early, you know. They came out, punched them in the mouth real fast, and then it was tied, at one point. But no, actually it was 17-14 because they were up 14 and then they kicked the field goal. Then Georgia scored. They didn't score. They were three and out. Georgia scored again. But that's when I seen the urgency of Alabama, who went back down, and before the half, they scored. It seemed like the game was over at halftime because, like I said, it was a tell of two tapes. The first half was just all about offense. The defenses couldn't stop nobody. When you look up, then that's when you seen that they in the second half stepped up as well. Alabama held them to a touchdown in the second half, and then it was only a field goal kicked in the second half from Alabama. So it was pretty good when it went to back and forth in the first quarter. If you wanted offense, you got it in that first half, and if you wanted defense, you kind of got it in the second half. End of the day, the crazy part was number 17 Alabama went into Georgia, beat them 24-21. And it just basically lets you know you're not out of it, even if you lose a game. You just got to run the table and you got to play. And like I said, it depends on who you lose to. Yes, they lost to Florida State and they was ranked number 8, but losing to Virginia might not help their case right now. So I want to see what happened with Alabama and what they do coming up this season. And they got some really heavy competition on their hands too, because they got to play Vandy. So I will be definitely getting into that as well. I want to get into this Auburn and Texas A&M game because Auburn is unranked, but you always got to give credit where credit is due. Auburn seemed like they're always in for a fight. Yes, Texas A&M, Marcel Reed looked okay. 207 yards, 15 to 22, but he had a pick on the day. And the quarterback, Auburn, didn't really do as much. Jackson Arnold, he had 125 yards, 18 of 33. That final score ended up being 16 to 10. But like I said, definitely when you're having competition in the SEC, you could throw out any rankings and you can throw all that stuff out the window because the competition is so good. They barely beat Auburn, and it was a really good game. I definitely thought that I was going to see another upset in the number 9 Texas A&M falling. That being said, that was still a good contest if you're a defensive guy. I want to get into another game too that I saw, and this was on Tennessee versus Mississippi State. This was a really close game, and it went down to the wire. The final score was 41 to 34, and Tennessee survived unranked Mississippi State. Who I like is Joey Aguilar, man. He's been playing really good. The one thing I didn't like is the loss to Georgia because if the kicker would have kicked that field goal and made it, they would be undefeated right now. We'll be talking different about Tennessee. But then, of course, they couldn't do it. And that being said, they barely hold on in this game. So that's just letting you know when it comes to the SEC and the competition, it's pretty stiff competition. Like I said, you could throw the rankings and the records out the window because it really doesn't matter. He had 335 yards through the air, 24-40, a touchdown, but he had 2 picks on the day. On the other hand, Blake Shepard had 180 yards, 18 to 29 and a score. He had a 1 pick on the day. The person who basically stepped up and was the star of this game, it's a really weird name, Fluff Bothwell. That gentleman, you won't say that to his face after that performance. He had 134 yards on 23 carries and 2 touchdowns. He was definitely a machine, and he helped that Mississippi State team out. I'm going to tell people this year, watch out for them because they can be a spoiler in some of these games when it comes to SEC, and I want to see what they do next season. Can't really still count them out because, they're 4-1, so you definitely got to put a little respect on Mississippi State name. I want to go on to number 15, Tennessee. I'm sorry about that, you guys. I just said them. Number 21, USC versus Illinois. This was a very weird game to me. how it was played and how it ended. I definitely thought USC had this game at first, but you got to give a little credit to number 23 Illinois and how they played. Luke Altmaier had 328 yards, 20 of 26, and two scores. He was actually pretty accurate with the ball. And Jaden Maeva had 364 yards, 30 of 43, two touchdowns, and he had a pick on the day. But the person who was the shining star of this game was Wayman Jordan from USC. He had 94 yards on 20 carries and two touchdowns. He was a battering ram in that game. But then Makai Lemon looked really good as well, 151 yards off 11 receptions and two scores. Unfortunately, that didn't help them win the game. The final score was 34-32. When I thought that USC walked them boys off, all they did was just calmly go down the field and kick a field goal. So, yeah, it's been really good, and I enjoyed the college game. It was a pretty good weekend, I could say. And those are the games I wanted to highlight and talk about. It was a few people on bye. You know, my Wolverines was on bye. So this week was just a cool week to just sit up and see what everybody else had to offer. Now I want to go in and I want to talk about the NFL games. I want to start off with the Thursday night game. The Thursday night game, first half was kind of slow. Second half picked up really good. Sam Darnold had 242 yards, 18 of 26 in the score. Kyler Murray had 200 yards off 27 to 41, two touchdowns, and he had two picks, and those picks ended up being costly. That final score of the game it was actually a really good game because, like I said, the Cardinals didn't do anything. They really came alive when it came to the close to the end of the game. But that being said, that final score was 23-20. It was almost, but it wasn't no cigar. It was like they say, close to no cigar. I just really feel like they could have did a better job and having more urgency earlier in the game, or when they tried to get back in the game, which they did, and they made the game interesting. But when it's to the point where it gets a little late in the game and you can't really do things and process what you're supposed to do, and the two picks were costly as well because they were at crucial moments in the game. Yeah, they're 2-2 right now, but they got a little work to do because I expect still a lot from this Arizona Cardinal team. I want to move on and I want to talk about the early game that they had in Dublin. That was a not so bad contest. It was actually okay. What I seen on that game was the Steelers had the advantage at the beginning. And, you know, the Minnesota Vikings tried to creep back in the game, but it was a little too late. Carson Wentz did okay. He had a 350 yards was because they had to come from behind. He was 30 of 46, two touchdowns, but he had two picks. And that's one thing that we know from Carson Wentz. I was about to say Sam Darnold, like he was still on the Vikings, but Carson Wentz is good at, you know, when he gets rattled as well to throw bad picks and make bad decisions in games. The 350 yards and two scores seemed accurate, but then the two interceptions was definitely costly. And Aaron Rodgers did what Aaron Rodgers normally do. He didn't really have a great game, just enough for them to win. 200 yards, 18 of 22, and he had a touchdown. Kenneth Gainwell was the player that I want to talk about. He had 99 yards, 19 carries, and two scores, and he looked really good in the game. And I feel like that was the best thing that could have happened to him right now. I mean, Jalen Warren's out hurt for Pittsburgh, and now they got this guy, Kenneth Gainwell, and I don't think they're going to miss a beat. So, yeah, that final score was, you know, it was really interesting at the end, but 24-21 and Pittsburgh Steelers just keep winning. And this was cool too because it was the first game in Dublin, Ireland. This was a game right here that had me a little nervous, but was I to the point where I was shaking, not absolutely. The thing was, I know how good that defense is, but now you're starting to look at Joe Flacco and you're looking at it and saying, okay, I believe now if they fall under and lose another game, which I believe they're going to Dublin, Ireland next, if they lose that game, I'm starting to believe it's time for them to start making different decisions. Since Dylan Gabriel is supposed to be the backup, you need to give him some chances. And if he don't do well with the opportunity, then we need to see what Sador have to offer. Joe Flacco had 184 yards, 16 of 34, and he had two picks on the game. The weird part about it was one of the picks, he was trying to throw the ball away, and it was an easy pick for Joseph Kirby. And I was just scratching my head on that one because I thought that was a weird situation. But yeah, maybe he was trying to throw it out, but he just had like a toss up easy pick for us. I'm not going to lose no sleep because those picks was going into points. And at the time, it was a little too close for comfort until we pulled away with the game. The rookie running back didn't play that bad. Quinshawn Junkins, he had 82 yards on 21 carries and he had a score. But the Detroit Lions do what the Detroit Lions do. I mean, besides like a play where I felt like Jared Goff got greedy and tried to, swing for the fences and tried to throw the ball for J-Mo. And when he tried to throw the ball to Jameson Williams, he got picked. He still had a pretty good game. He had 168 yards, 16 to 27, two touchdowns. Jameer Gibbs had 91 yards on 15 carries in the score. He was too fast for them, and it seemed like once he hit that line, he was out. I think that David Montgomery had a little bit more problems with that front, so he didn't really get off like he did the last game. Still, it didn't matter because Amon-Ra St. Brown had 7 receptions, 70 yards, and he had two scores as well. And Khalif Raymond ran the touchdown back, off of a punt return. So, yeah, it was really good. We scored in all phases and just really happy to see us being 3-1. And 34-10 was that final score. And now we're on to the Bengals. I want to get into the next game. I want to talk about the Los Angeles Chargers and the G-Men, the New York Giants. This was a really crazy game. I kind of figured it was going to possibly be some trap games in this Sunday, and this was one of them. What's weird to me about this, too, is Justin Hubbard didn't play bad, but he didn't play good in his game. He struggled when they really needed him to play great. He had 203 yards, 23 of 41 passing, a touchdown, and he had two crucial picks. Marion Hampton is definitely starting to make his way. He has some explosive plays. He had 12 carries, 128 yards, and he had a score on the day. Cam Scatterbo had 79 yards, but he still looked good too as well. But one of the plays that I liked was the Quentin Johnston. It was a really spectacular play when he caught the deep ball and went in for the touchdown. The game got relatively close, but it was just too many mistakes on Justin Hubbard's part. And got to give credit to my man's too, Jackson Dart, for going in, not letting this be something that fade him. It wasn't too big of a moment for him, especially coming from Ole Miss playing SEC football and having that type of competition. He had 111 yards, 13 of 20, and he had a touchdown. He threw through the air, and then he scored a running touchdown. When he had that rushing touchdown, it just looked like it was good for the Giants. They all stepped up to the occasion. And it was just good to see because when you've seen the bad performances from Russell Wilson, I mean, he had one good performance in there with 464 yards, but you had the two where he couldn't even throw for 200 yards and he couldn't get a score. This was good for the G-Men, and, congratulations to Jackson Dart. Like I said, the final score was 21-18. I want to get into this game, and this was a really bad game. This was like one of the worst games that happened this weekend, and I was really surprised. Well, I shouldn't have been because I mean, come on now, it was the Tennessee Titans and the Houston Texans. Just expect a lot more from the Houston Texans, and didn't get that this year. Can't really blame it all on C.J. Stroud because that O line is terrible, and they definitely need to protect him. But other than that, I want to go ahead and I want to talk about the score. Cam Ward had 108 yards, 10 of 26 in the pick. And CJ Stroud had 233 yards through the air, 22 of 28 and two scores. That looked efficient and it looked like everything was good on paper, but it was just a really sloppy game. And that didn't happen till close to the end of the game when they pulled away. And that final score was 26-0. It's not really much that I would like to say about that game. And it was painful even talking about it, but I want to move on. I want to get into this game right here, which was really not a bad game. The Atlanta Falcons trying to bounce back after the embarrassing loss to the Carolina Panthers, where they didn't score anything that game. And you have the Washington Commanders, who still doesn't have Jaden Daniels back. I believe he'll be back this up and coming week. Michael Penix had 313 yards, 20 of 26, two touchdowns. He had a pick on the day. But Bijan Robinson had 75 yards on 17 carries to score. And Drake London had 110 yards off 8 receptions and a touchdown. Marcus Mariota had 156 yards through the air, 16 of 27, two touchdowns and an interception. And Debo Samuel had 72 yards on 6 receptions and a score. That final score was it went down to the absolute wire. And it was 34-27. And Atlanta redeemed themselves after I said that embarrassing 30-0 loss. I want to move on to this game right here because the score might look like it was worse than what it really was. But the Saints was giving Buffalo everything they can handle, surprisingly. Spencer Rattler had 126 yards, 18 to 27, and a touchdown. But the defense was just really playing lights out, like they were determined they had something to play for. Still, at the end of the day, it was too much of Josh Allen and definitely him being at home. He had 209 yards, 16 of 22, a touchdown. He had a pick on the day, but James Cook looked really good as well, 117 yards on 22 carries and a score. And this gentleman right here who don't really get enough credit, Khalil Shakir, he had 69 yards, 5 receptions, and a score. And like I said, that final score looked like it was more than what it was, but they basically came and they were in for a ball game. That's why when they say you play to win a game, you just can't go out there and throw on the jersey and just feel like you're just going to go through the motions and win, because the Saints had something for them in this game. They're on 4 right now, but that final score was 31-19. And like I said, if you could go back and look at it, it was definitely to the point it was closer than that until, the very end of that game. And that's when Buffalo pulled away with it. This was a really good contest right here. And what I thought was going to be the game of the week definitely wasn't close. This might have been the game of the week to me. And this was the defending Super Bowl champion, Philadelphia Eagles versus the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Very good game. Jalen Hurts had 130 yards, 15 to 24, and he had 2 touchdowns. Baker Mayfield had a really good game in the air too as well, 289 yards, 22 of 40, 2 touchdowns. He had an interception. Bucky Irvin looked good on the ground. 5 receptions, though. That's what surprised me. He did it in both phases. He had 5 receptions for 102 yards and a touchdown, and he had 15 carries for 63, yards. So I really feel like that guy is a pretty good weapon over there in Tampa, and they're going to definitely use him to their advantage. Jalen Hurts had 9 carries for 62 yards, too, so he was a do-it-all player as well. Dallas Goddard had 4 receptions and 2 touchdowns on 37 yards too, meaning he was one of those red zone, guys who was getting the job done. This was a good game because at first when you seen it, you looked at it and said, Philly's about to just pull away with this game. Tampa Bay said not so fast. They got all the way back in the game, but I believe it was just too much of Philly and them, just basically punching them in the mouth early. That's what helped them and saved them to stay undefeated. That final score was 31-25, and that was definitely, to me, the game of the week. Now, this is a weird one right here because if I'm not mistaken, I don't know who I chose in this game. I want to look back and see. But the New England Patriots playing the Carolina Panthers, after coming off that huge win against Atlanta, I thought that they was going to go in there with the definition and this was going to pick up momentum for Bryce Young. And this is why we're so confused with him. Like, is he that guy or do they still need to look elsewhere? He had 150 yards, 18 to 30, and he had a touchdown. And Chuba Hubbard had 49 yards on 10 carries. This is the weird part. New England Patriots, Drake May, this was maybe his game right here to really start to shine and realize what he is. I mean, he's been playing good this year, even though the team hasn't played as well to support that. But he had 203 yards, 14 to 17, and two touchdowns. And Stephon Diggs had six receptions and 101 yards. This was one on all the phases of the game. Because if I'm not mistaken, Marcus Jones ran one back for a touchdown, and it was just really a defensive massacre. They punched them in the mouth, and they just really disrespected Carolina Panthers. They didn't have no respect for them whatsoever. That final score was 42-13. Definitely wasn't nothing that I was looking forward to. For them to put up 42 on Carolina after blanking the Atlanta Falcons, this question still needs to be answered in that organization. I want to move on to the Jaguars and the San Francisco 49ers. This was another trap game to me, a shocker at that. I always was hard on the Jacksonville Jaguars. Got to start giving them a little respect. I mean, they are 3-1 now. Trevor Lawrence had 174 yards, 21 of 31 touchdown. Travis Etienne had 124 yards off 19 carries and a touchdown. And when you look at it, Brock Purdy didn't look so well in this game. Maybe they might have been justified staying with Mac Jones. I don't know. He had 309 yards, 22 of 38, two touchdowns, and two costly picks. Christian McCaffrey had 17 carries for 49 yards and six receptions for 92 yards and a touchdown. So they used him as one of their weapons, which he's definitely is. But it was just those two picks was costly. Those two picks went back for scores. Well, one of them went back for a score, and another one just sealed the game. And that final score was 26-21, Jacksonville Jaguars. And like I said, they're riding high. They're 3-1, and you got to put a little bit more respect on their name because I wasn't respecting them like I should. And maybe it's time to start looking in on those guys a little more. This was a game right here. I actually, if I'm not mistaken, I picked Indianapolis Colts, and I feel like they still should have won this game. Daniel Jones had 262 yards, 24 of 33. He had a touchdown. He had two picks. One of the picks came at the end of the game when he was trying to do something. And I can't even really be upset with that. He had a pretty good game. And I'll tell you what happened in this game. Matthew Stafford, just who he is, I mean, got to give credit where credit is due. 375 yards, 29 of 41, and he had three scores. Puka Nakua had 170 yards on 13 receptions and a touchdown as well. This all came down to just one of the players, on the team, Mitchell, muffing a huge play. He had a really big reception, broke away, and before he scored, he put his hand up and he's trying to play around and do a little dance and show off. And when he did that, guess what happened? The ball slipped, rolled in the back of the end zone. That score was taken away from them. If they would have scored that score right there, that would have just closed out the game. When he didn't, it was still relatively a close game, and it looked like it was about to go into overtime. But it was just Matthew Stafford with that cannon throwing the ball to Tutu Atwell, and Tutu Atwell got open. He closed out the game with a minute and 43 seconds left. And like I said, the last interception he had, because he had a pick in the game, Danny Dimes or Indiana Jones, whatever you want to call him. But that pick was trying to get them and reel them back into the game. It shouldn't even have to be like that because Mitchell shouldn't have showed off and just scored the touchdown. But since he didn't, this is the reason why they're 3-1 right now. And I said, that happens sometimes, but they definitely look really sharp in that game. But Mitchell cost them regardless of that game. That final score was 27-20. Really good game. And I give credit where credit is due. I respect the Indianapolis Colts more than what I've done before in the past. And I think that they're going to go as far as Daniel Jones can take them. This game right here was supposed to have been a game of the week right here. And I'm not gonna lie to you. I think after the thumping that we gave the Baltimore Ravens with the 7 sacks, I'm still saying that Lamar Jackson was banged up from that game coming in. And it didn't help because Kansas City defense with George Galoftis and Chris Jones and a lot of the guys on the interior was rushing him, and they got some pretty good licks on Lamar Jackson. He ended up hurting his hamstring, and that made the game even worse because when people come in the game. I forgot who his replacement was, but whoever it was, they couldn't handle what Kansas City Chiefs did. And Kansas City was a little shaky at the beginning of the season. But Patrick Mahomes definitely found his magic where the defense was not really doing as well. And not only that, but just him being guy that he is. He's a magician like Houdini when he goes out there and plays. So give credit where credit is due on this game. It definitely seemed like a good bounce back game for them. We thought that we was going to get a pissed off Lamar Jackson going into Kansas City, him and Derrick Henry, and just going and putting their foot down. It was the other way around in this one. Patrick Mahomes had 270 yards, 25 of 37, and 4 touchdowns in the game. Lamar Jackson had 147 yards, 14 of 20, a touchdown, and a pick before he was injured. And the touchdown that they had too from Justice Hill was just like a garbage touchdown where he broke away because the game was already over and he scored. So, I mean, when you look at this game, 37-20, and the way they beat up on the Ravens, there's questions over there that needs to be answered. A couple of them are how long Lamar Jackson's going to be out with his hamstring injury, and is it really bad? We know that there are on defensive line and a lot of guys on that team, like Kyle Hampton, Calvin Noy. Some of those guys are injured on the team on the defense. That's why the defense is not playing as well. And Marlon Humphrey, I don't know if he got banged up in that game as well, but yeah, you got a lot of injured pieces over there with the Ravens, and it's starting to pile up. It's starting to look like it's question marks over there right now too. And how will the Ravens persevere and bounce back after this one? Because it was just an embarrassing loss, and a lot of people looked at it too. Some of the talking heads. I'm going to talk about a little bit more probably on the next show tomorrow on Wednesday. But a lot of people felt like Lamar Jackson and the Ravens gave up after that game. I want to talk about this game because this was a sloppy game. I don't know if I said one of the games was the worst games. This was probably one of the worst games right here because it was like nobody wanted to win. Caleb Williams had 212 yards through the air. 22 of 37, he had a touchdown and a pick. Okay, let me say it. This was the Las Vegas Raiders versus the Chicago Bears, and it was awful. Geno Smith had 117 yards, 14 of 21, 2 touchdowns, and 3 really costly interceptions. And this was a game where Ashton Genting really got off to 138 yards, 21 carries, and a touchdown. Roma Dunze had 69 yards on 4 receptions and a score. And DeAndre Swift, 38 yards, 14 carries, a touchdown. The defense was really good. He just really got a good red zone, touchdown. But the game was back and forth, and it was like maybe 3 or 4 different lead changes. The Bears came back and ended up taking the lead. And I didn't think it was going to be a walk-off victory at that, but Geno Smith and the Raiders went down, and they went all the way down to the point to where they had an opportunity to kick the field goal and win. But what happened was, in this situation, as soon as they tried to kick the field goal, it was blocked at the end, and the Chicago Bears won. So that's why the score was so funky, 25-24. But it was one of them games like nobody really wanted to win, but I think the Bears wanted it more than the Las Vegas Raiders. They move on to 2-2, and the Las Vegas Raiders are 1-3. What can I say? This was a good game, better than what I expected. I was going to go to sleep. I said if the score is like 21-0, or if it's getting really out of hand and it looked like the Dallas Cowboys don't have a chance, I was going to turn the channel or go to bed. Not so fast. The Dallas Cowboys made this a hell of a game. Questions are still needed to be answered with the Green Bay Packers too, and that defense. And but because what I looked at was you let Dak Prescott just really put on the show with you guys. We've seen teams just look really good against them, like the New York Giants, perhaps. Dallas, where Russell Wilson threw like for 464 yards. But then you look up too and you see this game, yeah, they gave up 40 points, but it was pretty crazy and it was a thriller. Nobody won. Yes, I said that, but still Dak Prescott looked pretty good in this game. Dak Prescott had 319 yards, 31 to 40, and three touchdowns. Jordan Love had 337 yards through the air, 31 to 43, and he had three scores as well. Josh Jacobs had 86 yards on 23 carries and two touchdowns. And Javante Williams looked actually pretty good as well. 20 carries, 85 yards, and the score. The person who really shined in this game because of CD Lamb's injury was basically this man, George Pickens. Usually I say he's one of those guys who doesn't really come off as being a good teammate. But in this game, he really shined. And I give credit where credit is due. Maybe he just needed this change of scenery. And now the CD Lamb is out. He's the star of this team. And they're going to go as far as Dak Prescott and George Pickens can take them. He had 8 receptions, 134 yards, and two scores. And he has very spectacular touchdowns and catches in this game. So it was actually a really good game. What it came down to was when it went to overtime, I thought Dak had to scramble to where he can score. And I mean, Micah Parsons tackled him, stopped him from winning. When I seen this, I said, well, I know Jerry Jones gonna have something to say. He definitely took a jab at this game, even though they didn't win. But that final score was 40 to 40. I thought that it was a walk-off victory at first when Dallas scored, but they went down the Green Bay Packers and kicked the field goal, and that was the game. That final score was 40 to 40, and it was weird, but they went down into a tie. And after the game, they was talking to Jerry Jones. Jerry Jones said, hey, that's football. I knew our guys was going to fight and give competition, but at the same time, I still feel like for people who questioned me and felt like that I made a bad decision, that I still stick by my decision, and I felt like I was right by making my decision. He feel like that he could get these 2 first-round draft picks and he can change everything. Yeah, I don't know if that's really the case. We still got to see how good the Dallas Cowboys are going to be and how good they play and perform. But still, Micah Parsons letting him go to another team and then having to face them this year, even though it didn't go down as a loss, it was a tie. But still, I just feel like that was bad decision making. But Jerry feel like he know more than we do. So I want to move on and I want to talk about the Monday night football games. It was sad too to see this game, the Jets and the Dolphins, because the Dolphins looked pretty good in this game and the Jets came on late. The really crucial injury with Tyreek Hill. If you've seen it for people who watch wrestling, it looks like when they do the dragon leg whip and they grab your leg and they wrap their arm around you and spin with you. It was more or less like he was trying to tackle Tyreek Hill. And when he did so, when he grabbed his leg and he spent to finish the tackle process, that's when this happened. It was a really freakish injury. He twisted his leg, and you knew when you seen his leg something wasn't right because it was pointing in a whole different direction. So it looked really bad. They didn't show it for long on TV, and a lot of people were concerned. That took away from a really decent game. And Darren Waller coming back and having one of the best career games. Basically after taking a hiatus, he was playing. He left after he was with the Giants. And once he left that year, he came back to the Dolphins and he played actually pretty well. He had 2 red zone touchdowns. I think he had 37 yards as well. Tua Tagovailoa had 177 yards, 17 to 25, and he had 2 scores on the game. And Justin Fields had 226 yards, 20 of 27, and he had a touchdown, and he had a really good breakaway touchdown too as well. He had 81 yards on 7 carries and a score. Garrett Wilson had 82 yards, and he had a touchdown on 6 receptions. Tyreek Hill had 67 yards. And the crazy part about it is now we know he's going to be out for the year, but how long he's going to be out in general after that injury definitely didn't look good. And when he come back, will he be the same? Like I said, that final score was 27-21. It wasn't really that bad, but doubleheader on Monday night always when they have teams like that don't go as well. This game was the better game, shockingly. I want to move on and I want to talk about the last game, the Cincinnati Bengals game. It looked like it was going to be a pretty good game at the beginning because Jake Browning was throwing the ball and T. Higgins was catching good passes. And, Jamar Chase looked good on some of the receptions that he had. But that being said, it wasn't too many highlights on the Cincinnati Bengals side. The defense couldn't really get to anybody. And not only that, but Jay Browning's definitely struggling. And now they're saying that we need to find someone to fill this gap and this void in our team. They're looking after guys and making calls like, can we get a Kirk Cousins or a Russell Wilson or even Jamison Winston? I'm sorry. And because they're afraid right now, they feel like because how long is going to be for Joe Burrow. I think he's going to be out for like 4 games. But still, I feel like that's too many games for him to be out and Jake Browning struggling the way he did. Definitely after having such a really breakthrough year as a backup last season and holding the ground and holding the fort for the Cincinnati Bengals, just not materializing this way this year. And like I said, this guy had basically 125 yards, 14 of 25 passing, and nothing happened on that end. It wasn't really nothing that went on. They couldn't find no offense, and the defense couldn't get to anyone. But on the other hand, the Broncos really had a dominant outing. Bo Nix had 326 yards, 29 to 42, 2 touchdowns. He had a pick on the day. J.K. Dobbins got 101 yards total in the run game. Cortland Sutton caught like a spectacular touchdown. He had 5 receptions, 81 yards in the score. And it just really looked bad this game. This was the game that I definitely didn't watch. I thought that was going to be the more exciting of the two. But I was wrong. When it came to the good game, it was that Jets Miami game, unfortunately for Tyreek Hill. But yeah, this was just really a sad game. That final score was 28-3. I want to go into my predictions now, and I want to start off with my college football. And I want to step in and I want to go with the Friday game, West Virginia and BYU. I'm going to give it to BYU and I'll go under with the points. They got them as an 18.5 point favor. I'm going to say at least they're going to be a 7.5 in this one. Wisconsin versus number 20, Michigan. I'm going to take the 16.5 points with Michigan at the big house. University of Kentucky versus Georgia. They got Georgia as 20.5. I'm definitely going to go with it. I'm not going to say otherwise because Gunnar Stockton and the Georgia Bulldogs are going to be pissed off after that game losing. And now they're going to be at home too as well. Yeah, I'll take the 20.5. Number 14, Iowa State versus Cincinnati. I'm going to go with Iowa State. They got Cincinnati by a point and a half, and I'll take the points with Iowa State. Number 22, Illinois versus Purdue. I'm going to go with Illinois, and I'll take the 9.5 points on this one as well. Number 7, Penn State versus UCLA. I'll take the 26.5 because UCLA definitely doesn't look good. Number 9, Texas versus Florida. I'll take the 6.5 points with Texas because I know this ain't going to be an easy one due to the fact they're going to be in a swamp. And then, that defense is ferocious. I just don't feel like they get enough from DJ Lagway and that offense, honestly. This is the game of the week right here, the 3:30 game. Vanderbilt versus Alabama. They have Alabama by 10.5. I'm going under. I'll take Bama at home, but barely. Boise State versus number 21 Notre Dame. I'm going to go with Notre Dame, and I'm going to go under the 20.5. Number 24, Virginia versus Louisville. I'm going to go under, but I'm going to go Louisville with the upset in this one. Kent State versus Oklahoma. Come on now. I'll take Oklahoma and I'll take the 45 points. Texas Tech, number 11, Texas Tech versus Houston. I'm going to go with Texas Tech, but I'm going to go under the 10.5. Minnesota versus number one Ohio State. I'm gonna go with Ohio State now. I'll take the 23 and a half points at home. This is one of the matches too that might be one of the takeaways because I said the game of the week with Vandy and Alabama. I'm not really that sure yet. I got to see both games before I decide. Number three, Miami versus number 18, Florida State. And then Florida State's at home, but I'm gonna take Miami and I'll take the 4.5 because Carson Beckman definitely showing me that he belongs. Mississippi State versus Texas A&M. I'm gonna go with Texas A&M, but I'm gonna go under the 14 and a half points on this one. Okay, now let me get into my NFL games right quick. Week 5 of the NFL, this was going to be a good one for Thursday night for the people who definitely feel like if we had lackluster games already. 49ers versus the Rams. I'm going to go with the Rams and I'm going to take the 5.5 at home. Detroit Lions versus the Cincinnati Bengals. I'm going to go with the Detroit Lions on the road and I'm going to take the 10.5 points. Go Lions. Vikings versus the Cleveland Browns. This was going to be a bad game because I still feel like, well, I'm going to look at it like this. This is the London game as well. This is going to be the 9:30 game on NFL Network, guys. It depends on what Carson Wentz can do. Minnesota Vikings, I still feel like they'll be better than the Cleveland Browns. But I'll say I'll go with the 3.5 points on this one. That might be one that I stay to sleep on. Houston Texans versus the Baltimore Ravens. I'm going to go with the Houston Texans on this one. Depends on if Lamar Jackson's playing. I'm gonna take them, and I'm gonna take the 3.5 that they're giving the Ravens. New York Giants versus the Saints. I'm gonna go with the New York Giants, and I'll take them as the 1.5 point favorite. Broncos versus the Philadelphia Eagles. I'm going to go with the Philadelphia Eagles, and I'm gonna go with the 3.5 points. Dallas Cowboys versus the Jets. I'm gonna go with the Dallas Cowboys and the 2.5 points. Raiders versus the Colts. I'm gonna go with the Colts, and I'm gonna go with the 6.5. Dolphins versus Panthers. I'm going to go with Miami, and I'll take the 1.5 points on this one. Okay, you got the Buccaneers and Seahawks. I'm going to take the Buccaneers, and I'll take the 3.5 that they were going to give the Seahawks. Titans and the Cardinals. I'm going to take the Cardinals, and I'm going to take the 7.5 on this one. Washington Commanders versus the Los Angeles Chargers. I'm gonna go with the Washington Commanders, and I'll take the 2.5 points that they were going to give the Chargers. Patriots and the Bills. I'm going to go with Buffalo at home and get them the 7.5 points. And the Kansas City Chiefs for the Monday night game versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. Don't sleep on the Jaguars, you guys, but I'm gonna have the Kansas City Chiefs at home, and I'm gonna give them the 3.5 point favor in this one. Okay. These are my platforms where you guys can reach me at as well. You can catch me on all these platforms right here. And I appreciate if you guys can show a little love on these platforms. I've been getting a little bit more love on Instagram. You can catch me at Hoovy, WHOOVI, and that's my Instagram account. Well, I just basically put out our product and the promos and, give snippets of the podcast as well from the Tuesday and Wednesday shows. Sports Guru to you on Facebook, where I put a lot of the scores in, like the breaking news. And on TikTok, I'm Hugh.Lee6 as well. I appreciate everybody and the love that's on TikTok and everybody been giving me. And I appreciate now that Instagram's starting to pick up the pace. And when they picked up the pace, they've been giving a lot more love and credit for the promos and the things that we're out there doing. And, please go to our YouTube pages as well. The Guru's Perspective and the Guru Sports Session. Click on the link, like, and subscribe. We would definitely appreciate that. We've been working hard and busting our tails on these promos and the things we've been doing for you guys. We just want you guys to follow and then, just be more in depth with that and look out for us. We would definitely like to get monetized at this point. But until then, we appreciate the people who do give us love and support. Shout out to Coach V, hope everything's going well with you on your trip. I would like to say another thing too, Felicia with Rumble Time, my homegirl Road to Stardom. And of course, Big Meech and Big Red and just like to say thank you for everybody who showed love and support to the team, Nikki. And I just like to say, I hope you guys had a blessed time. Hope you're enjoying your week right now. And like we said before, don't stress, let the Lord take care of the rest. And I'll see you guys next Tuesday. Until then, peace out.